you so much for joining us here at Front Office Sports.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
And thank you at home for joining us.
Jeremiah Love is a player that you have to keep an eye out on just because of a running back, his versatility, how good he is in the receiving game this year. We haven't seen a running back potentially crack the top three when you just think about it with the Heisman Trophy back there. Jeremiah Love just dominant. If Notre Dame wins out and they're in the college football playoff, Love should be involved in the conversation.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Blue Jays are going to be dangerous for years to come because they have money. They're a fun team. Other players like Guerrero, the Blue Jays are a first-class organization. They treat the players very well. They're first-class complex. As I stated earlier, you can live like across the street from the stadium and there's no drama. You don't have to sit in traffic ever. You have an entire country that buys your jerseys and are big fans of yours.
In-game live, only on
Time decisions. We are live on SportsGrid with you on a Friday night. Kevin Walsh right here from the decisions desk with plenty to go over as we get ready for the weekend. But first, a big-time slate starting in the NBA. Really good action tonight. The NBA Cup always delivers. It really does. Yesterday, a one-game board, the sacrifice for a loaded menu here. It is highlighted with a battle in Texas between Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs against my pick to win the NBA Cup, the Houston Rockets. First game of the Cup for both of those teams. For San Antonio, losers of 2 in a row. The Rockets dropped their first 2. They've now won 5 straight, booked as favorites in this game. What will we see from Wemby as he looks to stop the bleeding that is going on right now for this Spurs group? They're still awaiting the debut this season of De'Aaron Fox. He's yet to play for the Spurs this year. Late night, it was supposed to be a really exciting game in Denver with the Warriors in town. Instead, big-time number with Steph Curry out for this game. We're still waiting on whether or not Jimmy Butler will play. Draymond was on the injury report. He will be in for this one. The Nuggets are now set up to move to 5-0 as they are a near double-digit favorite. And when I say 5-0, 5-0 at home, they're 5-2 overall on the year, actually having already lost to this Golden State team. Plenty of other games on the in-between that we can get involved with here. First tip is at 7. I will say I am betting one of those games. Magic Celtics. This is not a hedge, but I played Boston to win their group. But I just like the number on Orlando too much tonight. At -3, I think the Magic are the side. First time they are home after a 5-game road stretch. A lot of talk about how bad of basketball they are playing, how bad the Desmond Bane trade has gone for this team here. I think that is going to lead to a real focused Orlando tonight. Worst case scenario is a Magic win by 1 or 2. If Boston gets the job done, it really strengthens their position in the group. It's not a must-win. I like Orlando in this spot tonight. Now, if you're not betting NBA, you may still be betting basketball. We got a great one tonight on this college slate, top 25 battle in the Dean Center with North Carolina and Kansas. UNC, a 1.5 to 2.5 point home favorite, total hovering around $1.60, tick under that. Darren Peterson gets the spotlight for the first time this year. We saw Dybonsa on opening night in Vegas against Nova. That was followed by Cam Boozer and Duke on the second night of the college season. Now, Peterson's already played a game. It's against Green Bay. They dominated, but now here in a national spotlight, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. His props are listed just south of 20 for this game. In fact, you may need 20 to get over his number. I'm involved with this one as well. We'll let you know before that gets off of the board. And you know what? I'm on UNC. I like UNC quite a bit tonight here. I think North Carolina is undervalued right now at this number. Maybe better said, though, by saying I think Kansas is overvalued. I think there's a lot on a freshman lead ball handler in Darren Peterson. I don't believe in Flory Badunga as much as everybody else. I think Caleb Wilson is going to bring the juice here tonight for UNC. Kansas's MO is to be a defensive team. UNC, I think, speeds them up. I think they win this game at home. We laid 1.5 with North Carolina. The college basketball card does not feature any other ranked action tonight, but plenty of ranked teams involved. Purdue, Kentucky, late night Arizona, and UCLA. College football featuring some ranked action here on this Friday night. It's USC taking center stage. If you're interested, they're laying 14.5 against Northwestern. Now, it's a bye week for the Wildcats as they make this trip. Maybe that gives them a chance to avoid what has been such a difficult thing since the Big Ten added in these Pac-12 teams, whether it be a West Coast team going east or vice versa. I would be interested in the Trojans if we were getting a flat 14, certainly a 13.5. I think USC offensively tonight should have themselves a bit of a game. That will be represented in our best bet column, not by me. Our guy Casino Chris in the back, I think, found himself a nice angle for this one. Not the only game on the college football board tonight. You have Big 12 action with UCF and Houston. And then you have Memphis and Tulane. Shout out Delaware State and Deshaun Jackson making the graphic here as they go to Morgan State. I will say with UCF, gaining steam in the market, how much of that is them being the right side? Needing this win potentially for bowl eligibility? How much of that is the space uniforms, which I believe I saw a graphic today. They are 8-0 when wearing the Space City Space U uniforms. It looks like UCF may be flipping to a favorite in most markets for this game. Where else are we going to be looking here, though, on this Friday? That is where I think a lot of people will be betting. Of course, there is some action over on the ice tonight. Lighter 4-game slate. The Isles in action, as well as the New York Rangers. The Isles are home. The Rangers are in Detroit against the Red Wings. But you may be looking to just get ready for this weekend, and we're going to be helping you do just that. The college football board this Saturday, it features some games that were supposed to be massive. And instead, we have massive spreads. Alabama LSU is a one-sided affair via the numbers. Penn State Indiana is a one-sided affair, and certainly not in the direction that anybody would have expected coming into the season with the Hoosiers laying over 2 touchdowns. I mean, you end up, it's such an interesting week, man. You have a top 10 matchup. Game day, Texas Tech, BYU. That's a double-digit number. With Tech laying 10.5. We're, of course, going to talk to Coach Terry Bowden, get his thoughts on not just tonight, but this weekend. The first set of the College Football Playoff Committee rankings have come out, and certainly those are all, going to be moving throughout the year. But that first set of movement will be fascinating to follow. Will we see any of these top teams inside that 15 or so, 16 or so go down this weekend? You'd have to imagine at least one, if not multiple. Now, for the NFL slate here this weekend, we're going to get you, as we always do on Friday nights, not just best bets, but our GTD-SU and our Friday 5. The Sunday slate begins in Berlin with the Colts and the Falcons. And for Indianapolis, a big addition of Sauce Gardner, of course, throughout the week, but arguably just as big a loss with DeForest Buckner having to go to the IR. Certainly the most known name on the defensive line in Indianapolis. A matchup now with the Atlanta Falcons. Will they rely on Bijan Robinson for, in a way they have not been able to really since the Buffalo game? Whether by choice or, not, that's certainly been the script so far for this Indy team, or for this Atlanta team. Interesting to see how they fare overseas against the Colts. We will talk to Brady Cannon about some of the action that he's starting to dial in on, movement across this board. Baltimore gaining a tick of steam against Minnesota. Jacksonville settles in as the favorite with the Davis Mills news that has come out. The Rams keep running up. The Chargers have not extended their number against Pittsburgh, so all things that will be tracked here on this Friday night. But let's get you set in for this college football card. What Lincoln Riley and USC can accomplish tonight, and what we will see this weekend with some big games as always. Still, of course, NBA Cup best bets, college basketball action still here as well into the college football slate. Game time decisions. We are live. We are on SportsGrid, and we will be right back with Coach Bowden after this quick break. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in. Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in a football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
It's Game Time Decisions. We are live on SportsGrid. We are joined by legendary head coach Terry Bowden. Coach, it is always great to have you on here, but on this Friday night, even a little bit sweeter because we have top 25 action with USC at home against Northwestern. It's a Trojans team who, according to the committee, are a top 20 team right now, but they have some work to do. They can't allow for any mess-ups here or slip-ups against Northwestern.
No, they've got to have this game because even after they've got 2 losses, and after this, they've still got to play Oregon and Iowa after this, not counting UCLA, and so they can't afford another loss. I'm not just to make it to the college football playoff, but I think Riley has to really look and they want people playing for the national championship or winning a Big Ten championship at USC, and I think at some point that's going to become the issue. But Northwestern's going to be a big battle for them.
Yeah, what's interesting, Coach, is for Lincoln Riley at USC, I struggle with figuring out where he is on the success scale. I'm sure you hear it from, of course, Joe Lisi. You guys, do a ton of work together. He is not Lincoln Riley's biggest fan. I thought that, I think Joe and some others undersell what Lincoln accomplished at Oklahoma. But with all of this craziness going on in the coaching world, in some places, all of a sudden his name's starting to pop up, Coach. Could you envision a world where Lincoln Riley makes another big-time move?
Well, I'm just somewhere along the line when you decide to go to a school like USC, and let's throw that in there with Ohio State and with Alabama, because historically USC is a school of champions, famous coaches who take it all the way. And the problem with Lincoln Riley, and he won big at Oklahoma, is the air raid offense, the run and gun, the wide open spread, the score lots of points. It's really showy, but how many of those teams are winning the national championship? When you're talking about a team that's a hard-nosed defense, run the ball with a big back, and pass to complement the run and run to complement the pass, I think that's the thing that he doesn't come from. It's more the Mike Leach background. But does he have great success? Does he develop quarterbacks? Do they score lots of points? But when you go to a Southern Cal, kind of like they're in the South, like LSU or Alabama, the expectations are much, much higher.
They are. And let's go right then there, Coach, with Alabama and LSU this weekend. I think these teams could have any record, and it'll be a big game. But you get such an interesting one now where LSU, off a bye, they try and play spoiler because that's really all they can do. LSU certainly doesn't control their own destiny. What do you make of a double-digit number here in Tuscaloosa?
Well, I've tried to look at all the other schools that have fired their coaches, and you think the immediate impact would be disaster. But look what happened at UCLA until the excitement wore off. Look what happened at Virginia Tech till the excitement wore off. Florida played well. Even Arkansas won big. I think there's a rally the forces, circle the wagons, get a little juice going. I think LSU's going to play very well. I just think that's the type of way the players and the assistant coaches will come together and play well. So to be honest with you, I don't question Alabama's going to win this game at home. They're on a roll right now, but I can see, and I'm going to take LSU with the points because when the points are this high, it's like Florida against Georgia last week. It's a tighter ball game, and I think there's a chance that LSU goes out there and play as good as they can play. The further towards the end of the season, I wouldn't put any money on LSU because of NILs and people contacting players and all the problems that are eventually going to come.
Yeah, it could get messy. I think that's a really good point. And, one coach whose name is going to also get thrown around a little bit is probably Drink at Missouri, Eli Drinkovitz.
Oh.
But he's got a big game this weekend here, Coach. The thing is, Missouri's been pushed aside, but they have 2 losses, and they bring a top 3 team in the country into their building. It doesn't seem likely, right? But Coach, if this team wins out, they're probably in the playoff here, and this is a winnable number. 6.5 isn't a death sentence, but they are on their 3rd-string quarterback.
Well, that's when you said 3rd-string quarterback. That's the part that gives me concern because I've coached a lot of different places. I usually don't have a 3rd teamer ready to go. Now, Sam Horn got hurt the first series of the first game, and so the Matt Zollers has a lot of reps, but he doesn't have game experience. That's why I'm going to give this one to Texas A&M. It's a touchdown. But I think because I'm Missouri, I'm a big believer in Missouri, the way they play football. They're going to have to really rely on Ahmad Hardy, the running back, to have a great game. A couple of the last 2 SEC teams have really kept him down lower. But I think the problem is Texas A&M, #1 team in the country, sacking quarterbacks with 32. They're going to put pressure on the quarterback, and they've scored over 45 times this year, so they can win big or win small. I might be willing to take Missouri if they weren't on their third quarterback. And with the third one, they'd have to limit their offense. They can't do as many things. And based on what I had to do in the past, I would not be able to get him ready to do everything that you would normally do to run an offense against a big game like this.
That's great insight. Coach, one team who is now back with their main starter is Texas Tech with, Brendan Morton back under center. He's a big-time number, though, for a top 10 matchup here with Texas Tech and BYU. What are you looking for in this game?
Well, really, this is the number. I'm looking at the number again because Texas Tech is really – these are the two favorites in the Big 12. Texas Tech is explosive on offense. They're outstanding on defense. But don't overlook BYU. They're playing very good. They find a way to win. That's why I'm taking points again. Maybe I'm going underdog this week. But I like the points on some of these teams. And I think BYU – I think Texas Tech wins a game in Lubbock. But I'm going with the points on BYU, even if they can't pull the game out.
I think for BYU, to your point, not that this won't be their mentality, but they don't need to win this game, right? Like, I think they could prove a lot just by sticking around because that number, like you said, Coach, the expectations is they might get their doors blown off here against Tech.
Well, yeah, but those kids, they see Arizona State beating them 26-22 and say, if they can do that, we can do that. So I don't think they think like that, but you're exactly right, though. There's the coaches are a little more relaxed behind closed doors, knowing coach your heart out, play your best.
Yeah.
It ain't all over if we don't win this game.
No doubt about it. Legendary head coach Terry Bowden. Coach, we appreciate it as always here on Game Time Decisions. We'll get you best bets for tonight after the break.
Sounds good.
Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think if you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in, Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
It is Game Time Decisions on a Friday night. It is, listen, man, Georgetown, Maryland, we hopped in as a team. And, the quote was, we need overtime in the first half. So that lets you know, unless we can get 20 in the next three, they're banking threes. I mean, it's ugly. It is ugly. Hey, listen, that's a sacrifice special. We'll take a loss there for a win somewhere else. Let me also, if I may, on this November 7th, happy birthday, Dad. I know you're watching at home. We love you. Shout it out. Team in the back says it as well. Let me tell you this. As they're still trying to root this thing and has no chance in the bag. Maybe one of the better gifts you're going to get this weekend, Pops. No Dallas Cowboys game to make you upset. Let's get best bets on the board here. We'll stick in Texas. I love over 223 in Rockets Spurs. This is a spot where pace has this number dropping, but offensive efficiency, I think, will rule the day. I expect great work from both key stars in Kevin Durant and Victor Wembanyama, who are each coming off of their worst two-game stretch of this season. For Durant, one of the worst two-game stretches he has had efficiency-wise in his career. Kevin Durant over the last two games is shooting 11 of 36. That is not KD. Look for a bounce back from him specifically. I think the others from San Ann at home will be a little bit more ready to go. It's an over 47.5 for the Houston UCF space game. I'm reading that play like a book. I know that is a uniform play if I've ever seen one. Makai Lemon anytime touchdown. Little lemonade for Casino Chris. Even money, not mad at it. That USC team total is big time. Well over 30 tonight against Northwestern. He's looking for Makai Lemon to help him out. Now, the card does run a little bit deeper than just some of that action that we've covered there. In the college basketball slate, I am on UNC -1.5. I think they are the better team early season. And I think at home is really where we see a ton of value. So laying 1.5, I'm happy to back North Carolina here. Again, I'm not going to act like Caleb Wilson is on the tier of Darren Peterson. He's not too far off. So let's get Caleb Wilson and this UNC team to the window early. Let's get Pepperdine to the window late. We're getting 29.5 with Pepperdine. UCLA came out and was ugly in the opener. And Mick Cronin was all upset about defense. They were playing faster than usual for Mick Cronin. He said, I should fire myself. Listen, Mick, I respect that, but he's not going to do that. He's going to slow the pace down, and Pepperdine can stay in range here. They play great teams like St. Mary's and Gonzaga. They won't be overmatched, outmanned. I like Pepperdine to hang. Biggest game on this slate, though. Biggest game on this slate. Wait, hold on a second. Let me take it off. That's my most unbiased man in the history of sports media hat. Oh, it's Gales by a lot. Oh, it's Gales by so many they don't know what to do. Hofstra program is on shutdown watch after the Giroux era runs wild. Am I saying that right? We don't even know yet. That's all right, Danny G, baby. I'll learn it as you win. Stack them high, brother. We are on this game. We're betting this game. I'll say it like I see it, Morency style. Iona's playing, I'm betting them. That's how I see this game here tonight. Go Gales. Now, there is some NBA action we'd love to get to before this commercial break. We've got our guy Mike Blewett stopping in. By the way, QB Carousel is going to spin on a Friday night. We like the Magic, -3. We like the Sacramento Kings, +11.5. I played 2 win totals before the season. The Indiana Pacers over. It's dead as a doornail. All right, that's done. That's it over. That's a loser. And the Kings over 36.5 or over 32.5. I love what I'm seeing for Sacramento. The Russell Westbrook's been fantastic for a bad win total over, because Westbrook is pretty sure the Kings are going to win a title this year. At minimum, he's going to win MVP in the process. He's averaging 20, 11, and 9 this month. It's a great time. They hang with his old team in OKC, plus the 11.5. Keep your eyes on Brandon Ingram over the 19 and hook. Bounce back spot. Little slender man special. KD, Wemby, and BI might not be bad. Let's get Mikey B in the building after the break. Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think if you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in, Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, you know, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Game time decisions. We are here with you on this Friday night. Kevin Walsh, as we get ready for some great basketball, Kentucky, UNC, Kansas, Purdue, a lot of big teams starting right now. Iona. I mean, listen, my, oh, my. We're going to pause some of that college hoops talk. We're going to bring in the one and only Mike Blewett. Mike, it is great to have you here on this Friday night. Mike does an excellent job leading our coverage each and every Sunday through the early window of that NFL slate. But one guy, Mike, you won't be breaking down, regardless of what time Arizona kicked off, is Kyler Murray. I want to start because there's a couple of avenues we can walk down with this Kyler path, but what you made of what I think we could all agree on was a decision to bench Kyler Murray for Jacoby Brissett.
Right. So we are dealing with an IR designation at the moment, but as they fumbled through press conferences and messaging, it's become apparent. And to be fair to Kyler, limited play for Jacoby Brissett, but in that limited play, their 2 stars, Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, have produced much, much better. It's become clear that the Petsing offense is favoring the way Brissett is running it as opposed to the way Kyler is running it. Is it as a result of Kyler not being fully healthy? Does it seem like they've moved on from the Kyler Murray era? It certainly seems like the latter. And it got to you and I discussing, as we do generally 2-3 times a year, what that quarterback carousel in the NFL looks like. What does it look like at the end of the year in terms of who's available in free agency and or a trade, and how many teams will it be that turn the page from the quarterback era that they're on? You could argue up to as many as 10 for 2026, and some are pretty obvious, and others do a little bit of digging on.
Yeah, and I think just what is so interesting with someone like Kyler Murray, where I don't know, Mike, does he fall in the Darnold, Baker, Daniel Jones bucket of like, hey, maybe it'll work somewhere else? Like, I don't know how we scale some of these things because Kyler was given, I think we would say, more opportunity than certainly maybe some of those guys. But Kyler's had more success pre-spot 2 than all of them, other than Baker. I mean, again, the Baker stuff is kind of crazy when you look back on it on hindsight there. Before we get to the teams that could be looking for quarterback, Mike, do you think that Kyler Murray is someone that a few franchises should be really interested in giving a chance?
Should be is maybe a difficult word for me to answer, but I will say he will be one of those guys. And we're looking at the Baker and Darnold experiments. It's not like this is their second stop, Kev.
That's true.
They had multiple stops before it ultimately worked out. Baker had Carolina behind Sam Darnold and LA before he ended up in Tampa. Darnold had multiple stops, San Francisco, Carolina, and ultimately Minnesota, and now ultimately Seattle, where he's having a lot of success, much to your dismay, but I digress. He's having a great season, and the Seahawks are having a great season. And back to the rotation, I think to put this in perspective, in the last 3 seasons, the last 3 off seasons, 25 NFL teams have changed their starting quarterback. 25 of 32. And sometimes we gloss over because we're constantly thinking of the stability with Lamar and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. But the real story is that this is a rotation. We miss on first-round picks. We miss on mid-round picks. Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys that hasn't changed, right? So, and there's questions about him. Kyler Murray has been one of those that hasn't changed over the last 3 seasons. And you start to look at guys like, well, maybe we're not going to reach our full potential with this quarterback. And yeah, Kyler will be on the move. And I think you look at some of the teams that you and I are probably going to talk about now as being possible landing spots. What did the Steelers do if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to come back?
So Mike, set the list up then for everyone. I think we can, we have it here in the back as well, of the teams that you feel, because like you said, you can expand it certainly, but teams you feel pretty confidently as we sit here early November will be looking for a new quarterback heading into next season.
Yeah. So I don't think the Browns are committed to Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, but obviously they can continue to experiment with either or both of them. You have going through it, the Cardinals, I doubt they stick with Jacoby Brissett, so they might be on the move, and maybe Brissett stays there as a bridge quarterback for them. So Kyler potentially moves on. You have the Colts, who may very well be giving an extension to Daniel Jones, but this is something the Giants have already done. And it's not me doubting Daniel Jones, but he suffered a very serious neck injury. And he is a week-to-week player. As much as harsh as that sounds, Daniel Jones will be a week-to-week player for the rest of his career due to the nature of that injury. So I don't suggest that they will get rid of him, but I'm suggesting that it's at least tenuous as long as for the length of time that he could be the Colts starting quarterback. Beyond that, we have the Dolphins. $54 million cap hit sounds gruesome, and it is. But when the salary cap is near $300 million, we've seen teams eat more than that already at a higher percentage of the cap than the Dolphins may be willing, that the Dolphins will have to eat in Miami. So Tua potentially moves on. The Jets, Fields and Taylor are not long-term solutions, even if they have to pay Fields $20 million next year. I think the Jets will be looking for something else. Beyond that, you have Carolina. Now, Bryce Young is 5-3 on the year. He's won 4 in a row, all by 1 score. I think you and I would have some questions as to the long-term viability of the Bryce Young Panthers offense. He has thrown for 300 yards 1 time in a blowout loss, and outside of that, has not thrown for 200 yards in any game this season. So that's your Carolina Panthers. The Raiders, they've given Geno Smith a deal, but they can get out of it after this year. And I think all bets are off as to what they will do. The team's so bad, you have to figure that it's at least in flux. The Rams I put on this list only for one reason. I think Matt Stafford has an opportunity to win the MVP this year, but we see every offseason there's questions about how long he can hang in there. He's suffered a lot of injuries. He plays at such a high level. I wouldn't expect him to retire, but if the Rams had a huge season and won the Super Bowl, would Matt Stafford walk away? I don't know. I think it's worth at least discussing. When I do this exercise, it's worth discussing. And then beyond that, you have the Saints. I think Tyler Shuck's getting a raw deal, but I think if they were so enamored with him, he would have started over Spencer Rattler and not had only 7 or 8 games to prove himself. And then finally the Steelers, which they could bring Aaron Rodgers back if he wants to, but he's a mercurial guy. He made them wait for months this offseason. I wouldn't suggest that Steelers wouldn't mind having him back if he plays like this, but I think he probably walks away. He suggested as much.
Yeah, there's so many interesting teams there, right, Mike? I think what is in this moment most interesting is how deep can we trim that list if we say interested in Kyler? I think that is what becomes a huge question mark for obviously Arizona as they look to probably move forward, right? And then there's a whole question of how Arizona will look to fill that out for themselves. But there's 1 or 2 teams on that list that I look at and I think to myself, there's a path, right? I think Pittsburgh is maybe the most obvious. I think people will make that Raiders connection. I wonder if there's a Browns case somewhere in there. We'll talk a little bit more about this. We'll talk a little bit more about what we saw the New York Jets do, and of course, what you're going to be able to get involved with this Sunday. A lot of big games. We'll break it down with you right here. It's Game Time Decisions. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think if you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in, Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
All right, back with it right here. It is Game Time Decisions. Kevin Walsh. We are joined by Mike Blewett. You can catch Mike each and every Sunday here on SportsGrid, leading our in-game live coverage beginning, of course, at 1 o'clock. There's a lot of interesting games that will be taking place. One game that maybe ends up with a little more interest is this Jets-Browns game because Cleveland is now being booked as a road favorite. They've moved to a road favorite with the, I'm going to call it a mini fire sale that took place in New York. Last I checked, Breece Hall somehow still on this team. Garrett Wilson still on this team. I don't think it was a full-on fire sale. I think it would have required at least one, if not both of those guys to be dealt this past Tuesday. Neither of them were. Mike, what's so interesting, though, is this game is fascinating, I think, on both sides of the table here, if I may. Dylan Gabriel is now going up against the Jets defense that has been super vulnerable, and they're booked as a favorite. Kevin Stefanski has, it's going to be Gabriel, it's going to be Gabriel. He said, we're not considering anything heading into the bye. How much of a leash is Dylan Gabriel going to get before we see Shedeur Sanders, if we will at all, start a game this year for the Cleveland Browns?
It's a fair question, and Kevin Stefanski relinquished play calling duties this week. Tommy Reese is going to take over for a calling play, so let's see if maybe that can spark something. Dylan Gabriel's superpower up to his previous game was his ability to play it safe and not turn the ball over. That went away, had a couple of turnovers, and they're not going to be able to deal with that. It's not a team that can win in that way. Haven't been explosive enough. I think it's a Quinshon Judkins type of game this week. And I'll answer the Shedeur thing in a minute. But you said mini fire sale. I would say I would give it a legitimate fire sale, considering positional value. I love Garrett Wilson as a player, and I think Breece Hall, is really talented. But when your star defensive tackle and star corner are out the door, you have waved the white flag in a huge way. I don't think you have to trade everybody to say it's a fire sale. They got some picks back, but they have to replace the guys that are as talented as the ones that they just traded. And that's not that easy to do. You could say whatever you want about Sauce not playing as well as he did 2 years ago. You just traded two guys that are hard to find in the draft, and you hit on both of them. So Good luck with that. So in terms of Shedeur Sanders and the Browns, so I think for this week, it's really difficult to figure out what the Jets' motivation is. We've seen teams get gutted before, and those teams don't show up that week. Is that going to be this Jets team? I tend to think it is. In terms of Shedeur Sanders, why wouldn't you, if you are getting late in the year, you're a 3-win team, why wouldn't you give him the opportunity unless he's shown you absolutely nothing during this entire offseason and in-season workout, taking reps and everything else? I think you try to see what you have, but this team's got a lot. People often talk of the defense and how hard they play, and Jim Schwartz's defenses are hard to play against, but offensively, they have almost nothing redeeming. You don't see any of the offensive players make plays other than David Njoku, which is obviously, Kevin, at times a symptom of quarterbacks checking it down and playing it safe. The tight ends are a huge security blanket for young quarterbacks, especially rookies.
Yeah, I think, Mike, and you saw the graph there, Polymarket's been posting the odds for Shedeur to make a start all season long. I think this is the highest they've been at a 76% chance. What's interesting is I think that movement is entirely representative of Dylan Gabriel's play, and none of it is reflective to how Kevin Stefanski speaks on the matter. And I think we can tie this even into this Kyler Murray situation. You can tie it into what you said about Tyler Shuck. This rookie quarterback class is a fascinating one. Cam Ward, by any metric you look at, has basically been the worst player in the league. Certainly been the worst quarterback in football. Jackson Dart's had a lot of good moments, so we can, I guess, kind of remove him. I said it in real time when Tyler Shuck was drafted as one of the worst picks you'll ever see because it was a complete waste of a pick. And it was. They're going to draft a new quarterback. Tyler Shuck had no chance at success in what they set up there, and they wasted a top 40 draft selection in picking him. And then the Browns did this stuff with two quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, Mike, are going to combine for 14, 12 starts for the Browns, and then they're probably going to move on to a completely different situation here. So, and that's what complicates all of this quarterback stuff, right? Is, we talk about time to develop, and where you are drafted is going to get you more grace and give you more time. We're looking at, again, like this situation in Cleveland. I think Kyler could be on the board. If they get shut out of, depending on how this QB class shakes out, they may try their hand at Kyler Murray. I don't know if the Browns are going to be signing up to project as a 3-win football team next year.
Yes, but you still have the albatross that is the Deshaun Watson contract sitting out there. that cap hit, if they took it all next year and just released him, is $131 million. There are big cap hits out there. That is unsustainable. That is well over a third of your salary cap on a player that's not on the team, that's not going to work. I don't think Kyler's a great fit for them, but I do think they may still be in the market. Look, they had a guy that could hold their water for 17 games this year, and they traded him to their divisional rival, and shockingly, he's playing great. So it ain't just the players. There is a lot going on in Cleveland that's not just the skill of the quarterback. And they're putting Dylan Gabriel in there and then Shador to not be successful. It's the same thing that you're just talking about with Tyler Shuck. What did you expect him to do? What do you want Justin Fields to do?
I mean, Fields has had. I'm not.
I'm saying
you try to sneak that one in there. No, we can't. No, he doesn't. Lisi paid you for that Justin Fields mention is what I'm starting to feel here. We are coming up against a break. Like I said, though, there's some good 1 o'clock games this weekend. There are two specifically I really want to know what Mike thinks about, where you have one team and maybe, gotta have it for the playoff hopes, and another game where two teams gotta have it for the narrative. We'll talk about it next. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think if you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in, Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
The notion of you gotta have it is in the eye of the beholder. I would think, though, Mike, that most eyes would agree that Baltimore, and if there are still Minnesota playoff believers out there, that these teams got to have it this weekend. A 4-4 Vikings team who sits last in the North, and a 3-5 Baltimore team who need to win every game, it feels like. I know they don't need to literally run the table, but any loss is going to feel super damaging to their outlook. What are you right now expecting from this game?
I think this is a pretty fascinating game. By the way, some really interesting home underdogs. We talked about the Jets, and obviously we can talk Niners, and now we're talking about the Vikings. There's some really interesting home underdogs here. Texans in there as well, but obviously with an injured starting quarterback. I am fascinated to see what Brian Flores can throw at Lamar Jackson. The last time out there when Brian Flores, when he was with Miami, went up against Lamar, he threw a ton at him in terms of different looks, blitzed Lamar at an extremely high rate. Can this Minnesota pass rush, which is legit, get home on Lamar? That is going to be what is going to win or lose this game for the Vikings.
Yeah.
I am still, though, bullish on the Ravens offense. With Lamar back in there, I think he's well rested. He certainly seemed healthy. They didn't even have their foot on the gas pedal the entire time against Miami, and they still put up 4 touchdowns. And they really weren't even their best, and they put up 4 touchdowns. I understand it's a very different quality of team, but I'm expecting points out of the Ravens. I don't know that JJ can hang with Lamar enough in this game, so I've been looking at the Ravens point total. 26.5 might feel high against this Vikings defense that might be able to get home. I'm betting against that, and I think Lamar and the offense has another good game, so over 26.5. And I think it probably gets them to cover, but I'm more likely to bet the Ravens scoring than I am them winning by a touchdown on the road.
The other key game you will see during Mike's stretch of in-game live is Tampa Bay and New England. Got to have it narratively more than literally. For Tampa, quite frankly, they could lose 3 in a row and would still likely be booked as favorites in the NFC South. For New England, you could argue a loss would be more damaging as they look to hold off the Buffalo Bills, but still a game to play in New England. It's, to me, more about how serious are these teams to be taken. I know New England won in Buffalo, but a lot of talk around that schedule is the fact that it's awful. And for Tampa Bay, a lot of talk about their wins is they were by a point or 2 or 3 at most. So do you agree with me, Mike? And what do you think about this game? But do you agree with me that narratively this is a really big game?
I totally agree with that. And these are 2 teams that I think generally people feel are good teams, competitive teams, playoff teams, and certainly at least one division winner, if not 2. But I would say that I feel like New England having another win like this would be a huge feather in their cap. Tampa protecting a home field here, they might still have some questions to answer down the road given their health issues and the very highly competitive NFC, right? The teams in the NFC, they might be knocking each other off a little bit, but these are really good football teams. The Seahawks are smashing people right now, and your Eagles haven't even played well, and they've only lost 2 games. So there are a lot of teams out there that Tampa's going to have to answer to beyond this Sunday. I do like them to get the victory here. I do expect a tight game. A field goal game doesn't surprise me at all, but I really need to see New England do this again. I guess I'm doubting them a little bit. Atlanta punching back on them on Sunday was a really interesting game. If anybody watched the totality of that, New England was completely in control, and then a fumble completely upended their walkover victory, and Atlanta had them dead to rights potentially in overtime, if not for the missed extra point.
Mike, you're the best. I always love the opportunity to check in with you again. In-game live at 1 o'clock on Sunday begins with Mike Blewett manning that chair. Up next, though, we want to play something from yesterday. A lot of big news in the betting space between DraftKings and predictive markets and ESPN Bet being no more. Our conversation with Ryan Butler around all of that news is next right here on Game Time Decisions. Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think if you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in, Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in a football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
With you here on SportsGrid, it is game time decisions. Kevin Walsh on this Thursday night. And there were some huge decisions made today in the sports betting space to help us try and understand a little bit about what is going on. We bring in Ryan Butler. You can find him on X at ButlerBets. Does some excellent work over there. He's been on fire today covering this stuff. So, Ryan, we really appreciate you making some time. And there are a few things that happened today. We'll start with, at least shoe number 1 to fall and the big headline story that ESPN bet is no more. What was your big takeaway from this playing out, that it's now going to be the score bet as Penn looks to pivot for the second time in short order?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway isn't so much that this is over, it's that it happened so quickly. There was originally, it was a 10-year deal. They had a 3-year out, both parties, but they decided they couldn't even make it 2 years with it. So the timing was just crazy to go from all of that, all that investment, all that time, all that marketing, and they didn't even make it to the 2-year mark. Now, was it surprising overall? No. Penn and ESPN that had really struggled. They had yet to turn a profitable quarter at a time when 6 other competitors were doing so pretty routinely. They were, fighting for scraps, but some of the other smaller sportsbooks they were competing with had spent a fraction of the money that Penn had invested. Overall, it's at least $3 billion just in different marketing ploys. They were giving ESPN $150 million a year just to use the brand, and they weren't even coming close to breaking even. So, no, not surprising that this happened. It's just surprising that it couldn't even make it past 2 years.
Can I ask you, in your perception of this, did ESPN, how do they feel as if they didn't help this market share at all? Did it not matter to them? Are they unfazed by this partnership being broken?
So it definitely mattered to them. Part of the contract was they had to have certain revenue share thresholds. They had to, get X percentage or whatever of the total market overall. So they were definitely invested in it. It just, there wasn't necessarily, if they had to get, their goal originally was 20%, which they ended up with about 2 to 3%. But there wouldn't have been a big difference if it had been 9 or 10 or 11. It wasn't per capita, but it was just still the reputation, the investment, the commitment, realizing what this looked like. It was in a dream scenario, the 3-year deal, they were going to renegotiate it And Penn was going to have to pay them more money than the $150 million a year. That was kind of the dream behind it. A 20% market threshold was, in retrospect, is pretty crazy when DraftKings and FanDuel are both about 30 to 40%. So right there, you got 2/3 of the market, and everybody else is just kind of fighting for single digits. So yeah, I don't think ESPN is super cracked up about it. They announced a deal with DraftKings. Minutes later just to kind of replace this. I think the biggest takeaway is that it wasn't that ESPN is giving up on gambling. It's giving up on Penn.
Okay, and that's why we then get the news about the score bet. Now, my at the moment take on this is it's actually going to be short-term good for bettors, because when things like this come about, books go out of their way to try and get you in. Today, ESPN bet 100% profit boost on a parlay. Those are rare to come by. Look, it's max $10, but they start giving out. And I imagine when the score bet goes live, there'll be a deposit bonus, and there'll be this and this just to get people in the door. How do you feel short term? Is this good for bettors, this news today?
Yeah, somewhat. I would say it's roughly even. You are absolutely right. This probably sparks things. So they were spending $150 million just to give to Disney, ESPN. They said today that they're going to use that on marketing themselves, and that'll include free bets, things like that. So that's a good opportunity with it. They're better integrated into the Penn environment. It's actually a long story, but back in the day, I learned how to bet on horses from a Penn track in West Virginia. So there's 40 of those casinos. They're going to be better integrated with that and maybe that type of customer. So I think there's a lot of positives. I think the biggest takeaway, Kevin, that we have to look at, and what I'm trying to stress the word, is that yes, ESPN bet is gone, but your account information, your balance, your futures bets, all those are still exactly there. They said today on their earning call, it's basically it's going to be the same exact sportsbook app, for better or worse, just with the score bet branding on it instead of ESPN bet. So everything that's there, all their parlay capabilities, their traditional bonus structures, their type of promos they do, it's all going to be there. Your money is there, most importantly. It's just going to be less Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, well, it is funny. There was a moment where I saw it was closing down, and I have, one or two bets that, future bets in there. I'm like, oh, that'd be great if I can get my money back. Those aren't going to win, but it looks like those are going to be holding firm inside the score bet. So there was a second story today. Well, I guess, I don't know. There's a million stories today. There was a second big story today, Ryan, that came from DraftKings around prediction markets. Simplest is think Kalshi, think Polymarket as it pertains to prediction markets. DraftKings with some big announcements today around that. Can you please, explain to the audience a little bit about what we saw?
Yeah, and what really was the biggest story long term is this announcement that DraftKings is going to go into the prediction market game, and not just those, the sports prediction markets. Them and FanDuel had kind of flirted with the idea, talked about it, maybe do something with the presidential markets or whatever, some pop culture type stuff or anything with it. Now they're going for sports, which is the big money generator, and it's the one that brings the most legal and regulatory scrutiny. So it's a crossing the Rubicon type moment. This is a huge deal that they're going to jump in. What DraftKings had to do was they had to wait. The Polymarket and Kalshi and all that, it's going to take at least 2 or 3 years before the legal is all settled. So DraftKings, they decided, okay, do we wait until this is settled and risk getting left behind if it goes in their favor? Or do we jump in and risk the legal challenges that come with it? They decided to risk the legal challenges. So this changes really the whole industry leading up to these earning calls that come once a quarter. Caesars, MGM, Bet Rivers, now Penn, the score bet, everyone. They're like, well, we're watching this, but we're not going to do anything until the legalese is sold. DraftKings came in today and said, nope, we're jumping head first. We're going in. They're going to go as soon as they can, which could be maybe by the end of the year. And this is going to change everything. This is now another huge player in the prediction market space, which is only getting bigger and bigger. Having DraftKings, a major brand, people might not know Polymarket and Kalshi. People know DraftKings. And the fact that they're in this now, it just changes everything.
I don't know if I'll have enough time for all of the questions that I now have, but I will do my best. Gosh, 2 minutes is not enough. Is this today good news or bad news then for Kalshi and Polymarket that someone like DraftKings is coming into their space?
The answer is we don't know yet. It could be really good news if DraftKings is able to maybe lift them up maybe public perception, maybe the courts, maybe this brings this and this completely legalizes them. That's the positive. The negative is, yeah, you now have a major competitor. But the thing is, I've always thought with Couching Poly Market, it was almost like if they won the court decision, if the Supreme Court, which is their goal, ultimately says you guys are allowed to do this as much as you want, well, they were still going to have to deal with DraftKings or FanDuel at one point or another, maybe a little bit different down the road, or DraftKings or FanDuel were going to come after them, or Amazon or somebody was going to come buy them. You know, it was ultimately someone was going to attack them. So now it's interesting that it could be here early. DraftKings could be an ally. It's too early to say. It's still, you know, the meteor just hit. We're still trying to look at the rubble and the remains, but maybe this is a benefit to them in that way. We just don't know.
And then would you say the goal, though, for DraftKings is to be able to offer their users both, or prediction markets replace sports betting?
The goal would be down the road, everything is a prediction market. And the sportsbook, you know, is just considered a prediction market. That is the dream scenario. Getting there is not going to come easily. That's much more difficult. In the meantime, what they're doing is states like California, Texas, where you don't have any legal sports books, that's where they're going. They're not going to New York. They're not going to Nevada. They're going to California and Texas, realistically, some of these states. And they're going to try to offer this platform, which prediction market does not offer as much as a sports book. It's much more limited. Still, they're going in there offering these bets and going until the courts or the regulators or God or someone stops them.
Man, oh man, what a day. And that was really only like 10 minutes of my day. I can only imagine for you. Ryan Butler, incredible stuff. We appreciate it. We'll be right back on SportsGrid. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in. Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in a football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, you know, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Lot happening live right now here on this board. College basketball's off and running. Close back and forth between KU and UNC. Kentucky up big time. Iona up big time. The NBA Cup is rolling as well. But I know it is important to try and set you guys up for the weekend. And that is why we always get Brady Cannon in here on a Friday. And one of the things that I think, Brady, you know, it resonated with me that, you know, you guys had a really strong week last week. And part of it resonating is Season goes on, cream rises to the crop, and you and your guys, and that's why you have the show, and it's why you guys have had success over the years. So, can you give me an idea? One of the few plays that's making it to the top of the card this week for you guys in the NFL.
Yeah, we kind of shifted gears a little bit this week, Kevin, because despite the nice week that we had last week, we're still just about 500, and we're ahead of the curve. We're above average, but we are officially in the second half of the contest season now. 9 weeks in the books, 9 weeks left to go. So we said, you know what, it's time to try and make a little bit of a splash here, because if we just keep, running in lockstep with the masses, that we're not going to make up any ground. So in the super contest, we went with, 4 of our favorite plays, and then took one that we felt was a little bit of an outlier. But in the Circus Sports League, where you have a much larger volume of competition, and you also have the beginning of another quarterly prize for the next 4 weeks here as well. We got even more aggressive with that and took some games that we felt would be very much in the minority, or games or sides that are in the minority, or games that would be very largely overlooked and not paid attention to. Like, when people say, I want to stay away from that one, I don't want any part of that one. Those are sometimes good games to try and pick a winner, because you're not up against a lot of people involved with that game. So we went that direction in the Circus Sports Million, and it could come back to bite us hard. If
Sure.
we go 0-5, we're in real trouble. But the upside is, if you go 5-0, that's a huge splash, and you could really make some noise and vault up the leaderboard, if we're correct in our assumption that these are going to be very low attention, low priority, or even opposite sides of what the majority is thinking this week. And we started with those lovely little New York Jets catching 2.5 in a barn burner of a game against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this fits the bill of an ugly side and an ugly game that probably a lot of people won't be paying attention to. We took the Dolphins plus 9.5. This may actually be popular. I think it's a pretty sharp play to land on the big dog here. The Saints, plus 5.5. Does anybody want to go that direction? On the other hand, does anybody want any part of the Panthers as a big favorite? The Texans with Davis Mills at the controls, plus 1.5 in the contest. And then this is absolutely against the market. We've seen the market go towards your Philadelphia Eagles, taking that game all the way down to -1 or even pick them. We ate the 2.5 with the Packers, and that we figure will definitely be in the minority. So, those are all kind of oddball picks. And if we have a 4-1 week or something like that, it could work out really well for us.
Yeah, I love the gamesmanship of it all. Everyone has their process. I had not worked back to some of these numbers. I didn't know Philly is down to 1 in the market. Yeah. That is a little surprising.
I may have seen a pickup, but and it might get there.
Yeah,
we do reserve the right to change these, barring injury news and stuff like that. But we're going to roll the dice a little bit in the circuit contest and see if we can make a move. And that's exactly what it is. Game theory. How this is, we talked about it, how this is so much different from just the bets that you make at the window. And that's part of the beauty of contest play as well.
I thought it was a chance that Green Bay went up to 3. That must have been some wishful thinking in my mind here heading into this weekend. Can I just ask you about one more game, Brady? Because then, if I can, maybe I'll try ask you about the golf quickly. But the Rams-Niners, I'm seeing this at 5.5 in one spot now. Are you surprised at the way this has continued to run up to LA?
I'm not, because I think that's a very public side, and maybe it's a sharp side too. I made the number 7, but this was actually the one kind of outlier against the grain play that we took in the super contest. We took the Niners at what could be now a bad number, getting 4.5. We know the history there between these two teams. History says this is going to be a field goal game, no matter how good the Rams are and no matter how injured the 49ers are. But we felt that the Rams would absolutely be the popular side. And so we took a chance with San Francisco. And, while it scares the heck out of me, because when is Sean McVay and clearly the better team going to just trounce the 49ers? Maybe it's this Sunday, but it just never seems to happen.
I do not know what to do with the state of that defense. I don't. I mean, it's relentless the way these injuries have stacked. Brady, I'll ask you this quickly before we get you out of here. We appreciate it as always. I know it's a busy Friday. Golf-wise, I know there was a tournament. Has anything moved early that you are keeping your eye on?
Well, one thing's really good, knock on wood. We have Matty Schmid at, I want to say 100 and some to 1 or something like that. You might have gotten him at 75 or 85, but he is currently in the lead after 36 holes. And we've got another couple of guys that are right there. I've got Justin Lauer, who's currently tied for 8th, and I've got Garrick Higo, who's currently tied for 15th, and Michael Thorbjornsen, who's in 25th. So I've got 4 guys right now that are all in the top 25 at the Worldwide Technologies Open Tigers course in Los Cabos, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. And hey, we're going to cross our fingers and hope we have a great weekend.
Let's hope.
Thorbjornsen is a guy that has been very popular and a trendy pick, but we didn't see that this week. The masses weren't on him. So I said, maybe this is a good time to buy. Maybe he makes a move over the weekend.
Awesome. We'll root it all. We'll be sure to root it in. We appreciate it, Brady. I think it's going to be a really fun weekend across the card. Thanks as always. Make sure you guys are following Brady at Las Vegas Golfer. Does a lot more than golf. Brady, we appreciate it.
You bet, my friend. And the Las Vegas Football Contest Show on SportsGrid tonight about midnight Eastern.
Perfect. Make sure you are dialed in for that. We will get you all of the picks for the weekend and the remainder of tonight's slate after the break. Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They didn't panic. They played like a championship team. They came back and destroyed them, probably cost Brian Kelly his job at least a week earlier than it might have happened before. But the fact is they are playing great. But like I say, I like the talent level of all those teams. And I think you want to have a little bang for your buck and play around with a team that could slide in. Ole Miss might be that team.
The Bowden Blitz. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
All right, let's get to your live board before in-game live, and then we'll get you every one of the picks that we have loaded up here in our back pocket before the rest of tonight's action and the weekend is fully underway. College football board has not started yet. At 8 o'clock, you will begin UCF and Houston. There are some of the non-FBS games underway, like Delaware State and Morgan State. We do have hockey live. It is tied at 1 apiece in Detroit against the Rangers, and it is a Minnesota 2-0 lead up on the Isles, out on the island. College basketball, the number that'll really stand out is a tie game between Purdue and Oakland. A pregame 31.5 number is not cut down as far as you would think. Purdue right now is 5 of 20 from beyond the arc. They've not really been able to get to the line either in this one. Books certainly don't think there's any chance of an upset in this one. The new number right now we're seeing is around 17.5 on the Boilermakers. There's the UConn I tried to bet on opening night. 28-2. Oh, my Lord. 8 minutes into this game against UMass Lowell. They are destroying UMass, who, by the way, they don't even have a made field goal yet 8 minutes into the game. They are 2 of 5 from the line. They are 0 for 14 from the field. Yikes. UNC trails Kansas 37-29. Darren Peterson with 11 at the break. He's made a 3. UNC right now, ice cold from beyond the arc, 3 of 15. They could be down a lot more. I think this team still has plenty of juice within this one. NBA-wise, we've got a few more just getting underway, like the Spurs and the Rockets, the Nets and the Pistons. You also are beginning in Atlanta as they host the Raptors. We're midway through the first half, or the second quarter of Orlando-Boston, which is a 43-39 lead for the Magic. The Cavs, who had a monstrous team total tonight of 127.5, are on their way as they scored 39 in that first quarter against Washington. They have seen 4 made threes already from Sam Merrill in this game. Washington scoring in this one because 5 made threes from C.J. McCollum. Trey Johnson's got 4 early if you happen to have him somewhere under the hat. What do we have out in public for the people? Now, one of these is already underway, which is my Rocket Spurs over 223 best bet, but still to come in Mackay Lemon anytime touchdown for our guy Casino Chris, and then Sam Yarnell with an over 47.5 in Houston UCF. Let's stick with the college, GTD State University. Our favorite picks on this college board, or some of our favorites. Anytime touchdown is where I was last week with Mateer. We're going to run it back with Noah Whittington in the Oregon-Iowa game. Iowa allows a lot more touchdowns on the ground than through the air this season. I don't trust the pass attack for Oregon, but I think we're getting a great number on what I still believe is the lead running back for Oregon. Now, it's been tricky to figure this out for the Ducks this year, but at plus 190, we're getting a good enough price. Jordan Davidson could certainly factor in, but Whittington has the higher number. Dan Lanning, I think, has more trust in Whittington in such an important game. Chris is going to go to the all-team total parlay. It's both Indiana and Alabama over 26.5. The Hoosiers on the road against Penn State, laying over 2 touchdowns. Bama at home against LSU, laying 10 and a hook. Yarnell finds a number at FanDuel that he has been waiting on all year long, which is a JMU team total rushing yards prop. That is a 247.5. AJ keeps it simple, lays 6 on a hook with Texas A&M against Mizzou. If you do like the Tigers, 7s are starting to appear in the market, so patience could be your friend. If you want to back AJ and A&M, you might want to get to the window sooner than later. Friday 5 NFL style here. We have 1 pick from Berlin and then 4 from the same game. All right. I figured let's get it going early with Bijan and Jonathan Taylor for 200-plus rushing combined at plus 275. Each guy for 5.25, each guy for 10.25, each man for 50 in the first half. That's 50-1. I'm going to be looking to climb the ladder with Bijan and Jonathan Taylor in Berlin. And then we begin game of the century. Zay Flowers, anytime touchdown, Chris. TJ Hawkinson, long reception over 13.5. You don't need me to tell you who. AJ takes the Vikings plus 4.5. The mystery man with a Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown. One of those screams fade material. In-game live is next.